Well, welcome to Coffee with Job, number 6, I think this is. This is Monday morning. And we come to this amazing passage of just a couple of verses in Job chapter 2 about his wife. His wife said to him, "Are you still maintaining your integrity? Curse God and die." He replied, "You are talking like a foolish woman. Shall we accept good from God and not trouble?" In all this, Job did not sin in what he said. Now, I wonder if this was the biggest trial for Job of all. There's a song, which again, if YouTube would let me, but they won't, I would play by the Scottish band Nazareth, "Love Hurts." It takes a lot of pain. I think the worst experiences you can have are when your friends and your family hurt you and let you down. Now, they have the potential to do that more than anybody else. And so often the devil comes and attacks through families. And it's why we need to constantly be aware of that we are good husbands, good wives, parents, children, and so on. And it's a struggle, and we have to work at it, because you're living with somebody and you get to know their faults, and you express yourself more openly to the people who you love, who you are with, and who you share your life with. And that's sharing both the good, the bad, and the ugly. And certainly Job's wife, what can we say about her? Well, she's become something of a feminist icon. You know, Job, the big bad patriarch, and Mrs. Job, the long-suffering wife. Calvin said that she was the tool of Satan. Augustine called her the devil's advocate, but then we know they were patriarchal male bigots, weren't they? I like the LXX, that's the Septuagint translation. After a long time his wife spoke to him. "How long will you bear this and say, 'Behold, I will bear it with it for a short time, still in expectation of the hope of my redemption'? Behold, your memory is swept from the earth, your sons and daughters, the pains and difficulties of my womb, for whom I suffered and worked in vain. You are sitting in the filth with the worms, and you bring the night into the open air. And I go as a day labourer through the land, from place to place and house to house. I wait for the sun to go down, to find rest from the toil and pain which now overcomes me. Say a word against the Lord and die." Did she feel wronged by her husband? Her children gone, her social standing, her money. Does she hate God? Or does she just want to end his misery, a kind of theological euthanasia? Job calls her foolish. Is this a mild rebuke? It could mean. Well, does he call her foolish actually? He says, "You're talking like a foolish woman." He's saying that maybe she lacks understanding, but this is a very serious charge. To be called foolish in the Bible. Psalm 74 verse 18, "How foolish people have reviled your name." The truth is, she has no patience. She's angry and bitter with her husband and with God. It is hard to live near someone who is suffering and be unable to do anything. Such frustration can be turned into irritation and anger at the one who's in pain. You know, I often feel for Annabelle, my wife, just when I was seriously ill 10 years ago, I think the pain she went through was far worse than mine. And anger with God is not always wrong, by the way. You look, for example, Habakkuk. "How long, O Lord, must I call for help, but you do not listen?" I think we question. But the trouble is, she was putting the temptation into Job's heart, if you like, Job's mind, to do what the devil wanted him to do. Perhaps she intended to be helpful. Perhaps she's speaking out of love for Job. Perhaps it's anger and bitterness. Perhaps it's all of those things. But she puts him under more pressure and causes him more pain. Often we see the inner weakness of great men of God and great women of God is in their marriages. Marriages of Christians are not necessarily Christian marriages, although they could and should be. So I think there are some really, really important lessons for us in that. And I think one of them is simply this: to love our wives as Christ loved the church, and for wives to love their husbands and to submit to them. And that's another thing that we go into, but in the biblical sense of in Ephesians, but we are to love one another, we are to submit to one another, we are to care for one another. And please don't let's be those people who the devil uses to undermine the situation and the faith of those whom we are closest to. See you tomorrow.